Hello everyone, welcome to Marlin Chess Kids. Today I'll show you the game played by Goran and Luka. And the game starts with a pawn to e4, c5, knight f3, a6, knight c3, e6, d4, and now the c capture d4. Then the knight takes d4 and b5, and here is the first 5 move, and here you have white is better in this position, as after 5 move you have 2 knights in the 16th square, and with this the pieces has more activity to play around in the game, and the game continue with the bishop to d3, then queen to b6 and knight to b3, then queen to c7, and now queen to f3 and b4 was played, and now the knight to b1, and here the black developed the knight to c6, and after this the white go for short castling, and the black continue to develop another knight, and here is the first end move, and the white is slightly better in this position with the king has been away from the center and safe from being attacked. Then the white continue to play a3, and now bishop to b7, then the white continue to play pawn takes b4, and now the bishop capture the b4 pawn, and queen to e2, then the back castling and bishop to g5, trying to capture the knight, and if the pawn capture, then the king pawn at g will be missing, and the king is very exposed for the attack. So therefore the bishop back to e7 and protect the knight. After this, knight to c3, and now the knight to e5 was played, and here you have the first 15 move, and the white is still slightly better in this position. Then the game continue with the knight to a5, trying to make some activity or exchange with the bishop, and now the rook a to b8, protecting the bishop. Then f4 was played, continue the attack, and also can attack the knight, and now the knight capture the bishop, then c takes the bishop, then d5 was played, and now the white continue to move the pawn ahead and attack the knight. e5 will be the strong move to attack the knight, and if back to this position, if you capture the knight, and this will give the black better in the position. So if the knight capture, then the bishop king will capture and will attack the pawn, and after king move away to h1, then the black can move h6 to attack the bishop, and after bishop capture, then the bishop will capture and attack the knight, and now if the pawn capture the d5 pawn, then the pawn will capture back. And if the game continue, you can just move the rook to a5 and attack the pawn. And in this position, the black will be in a slightly better position. So in the actual game, e5 was played to attack the knight, and now the bishop to c5 and check the king. Then the king moved to h1, and now the black is under pressure where the pawn is quite active and attack the pieces. So the knight moved away to d7. And after this, the knight moved to b3 and trying to attack the bishop. And again, in this position, if you capture the bishop, then the queen will capture back. And now if you move the knight to attack, then h6 will attack. So in this position, you give black the slightly better. And another suggestion, if you back to this position, the best move to play will be a sacrifice of the pawn, d4. And if the black capture the sacrifice piece, then the bishop will go to e7 and attack the rook, and any move from the black, then the bishop will go to d6 and attack the queen and winning the rook in the action. So if the bishop capture, then the bishop will go to e7 and any move from the rook, so any move will be a winning for the white. So rook f to e8, then bishop to d6, and you win a rook. And any move from the back, the bishop, you just capture the rook, and it will be the bishop pawn exchange for a rook. And back to the position d4. And if the bishop goes to e6, then the knight will just capture. And after queen capture, then the queen will go to d3. And here you maintain the equal position. So in the actual game, knight b3 was played, and the black played bishop to a8. After this, the knight takes the bishop and knight captures the bishop, and d4 was played to attack the knight, and now knight to b3 and to attack the rook. Then the rook a to d1, and after this, rook b4 was played and keep on the attack, and the queen to f2 to maintain to have the double protect. And after this, queen to a7 to bring another piece into the attack. And now the white play a f5 to use a pawn to attack and trying to destroy the structure of the king pawn, to attack the king pawn structure of these pieces. After this, the pawn takes e5, and now rook to d3, strongly threatening with the idea of bishop f6 and have the rook to g3 and sacrifice and win. After this, rook to e8 was played, and now rook f to d1, then knight to a5, and after this to bring the queen to h4, and actually you can just capture the pawn and you'll be fully active and attack the black side. So in the actual game, queen h4 was played, and after this the queen to b6, and this is a tactical blunder that causes the white to win. And after this you can just go for bishop to f6 and you will be winning the game. But in the actual game, rook g3 was played to bring more of the pieces, and bishop to f6 will be threatening mate with the queen to g5 and checkmate at g7. So after this position, king h8 was played, and this is another mistake that the black played, and here the white is clearly winning in this position. If back to this position, if you play bishop to f6, and let's say if a black play a rook to e6, then you can just bring another rook into the action and will be checked and win the game. And if you use the pawn to capture the bishop, then the e takes f6, and here you will be complete winning and checkmate. Your queen can come to here and checkmate the king. So therefore the black will need to capture the pawn with the queen, and we will be losing the queen. So after rook g3 was played, and if the black capture the free pawn, so if you capture the free pawn, then the bishop will just go to f6 again, and now this pawn is unguarded, and we just push the pawn up. Then here you have the beautiful sacrifice of the queen. For example, you can play a queen takes the pawn and check the king, and if the king move to f8, then you have a bad rank checkmate. So for example, you capture, and if you move to f8, then the queen can just go to h8 and bad rank checkmate. And back to this position, if you capture the pawn, you use the king to cap it, then you have the rook to h3, check the king, and go for the bad rank checkmate. So rook to h3, check, go to g8, then you have the rook to h8 and bad rank checkmate. So after bishop to f6, and if you play a rook to e7, then here you can play a sacrifice of the rook. Rook takes e7, and now king to f8, and in this position here the white can make a sacrifice and win in 6. For example, the rook to g8, and this is a brilliant sacrifice with a double exclamation mark. And after king capture, then you have the queen to h6 and block the king to escape, and the next move will be checkmate at g7. So any move of the king, such as rook takes g2, then king will just capture again, and if the queen capture the bishop, then the pawn will just capture, and again it will be checkmate. And if the rook to check, then the knight will capture. And if the king to h8, then queen to g7 will be a checkmate. So in the actual game, king h8 was played, and after this, here come with the brilliant sacrifice bishop to f6, and it's a complete winning. And after this, from this statistic, you can see that it will be made in 19 moves, and no matter how the black play, white will be winning. So in the actual game, the black capture the bishop with the pawn, and after this you will win the game and we have a mate in 5. I give you a couple of seconds to figure out how the continuation of white to play and win and checkmate in 5. Well, congratulations for those who found the answer, and for those who like to enjoy the show, here are the moves and the continuation that you can play. In the actual game, after this, the white play queen to h6, and the next will be queen to g7 checkmate. So queen to h6 was played, and after this, rook to g8, and in this position you can see that the best move is to capture the pawn, and we have more pieces bring into the attack. But in the actual game, the rook capture the rook, and here white is still winning, but it will take a longer time. And after this, king capture, then the pawn takes e f6, and here after this position the black resign, as there's nothing can prevent the checkmate at g7 and check the king. And if you use the queen to capture the pawn, the white will be completely winning the queen. So back to this position, rook g8, the best move will be a pawn capture. So pawn capture, and here then you bring the rook to g7, and the queen will just capture the h7 and will be a checkmate. So there could be nothing can prevent the check. And if the queen goes to b8 to continue to protect the rook, then the rook will just go to g7, and if the black just capture the pawn to check, you can just use the king to capture. And now if the rook capture, then you can just use the queen to capture and checkmate. And with this, thank you.